it looks like there's going to be more coming through the door at Arsenal as well, guys. Like I said, right at the top, it's turning into quite an exciting looking window. Let me just ask you, before we move on to the other targets, though, Sam, you're great at talking about systems and so on, but where will Gyökeres fit as far as Arteta's system is concerned?
Well, I mean, he can only play one position for me. He plays as the number 9, and he's the focal point. So he's got a lot of Arteta traits. I think he will work very hard across the front line, which is a prerequisite for Arteta. He'll drop deep and get the ball and come and get it. Of all the strikers I've seen in the last couple of years, he's probably one of the most adept, I should say, at dropping in really quite deep, taking the ball, shielding it, holding it for 5 seconds, and then getting his team up, or just running. Because remember, for Coventry City, he used to take the ball and just run like 50, 60 yards on his own. Like, he played with power, the stride, the way he runs, the way he knocks the ball ahead of him and just goes. Like, there's a lot of physical quality to Gyökeres here, which I think Arsenal fans are going to really enjoy. And when he hits the ball, I mean, it stays hit. It's one of those. I mean, you can pick apart his goal tallies as much as you want this season. He scored a hell of a lot of goals against a lot of rubbish teams, but he also scored a hat-trick in the Champions League. And when he hits a penalty, and then he breaks the net. So these are qualities that people are looking at in strikers and going, yeah, okay, let's go for it.
Bad news for Havertz then?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the midfield experiment didn't really pan out. Look, you need more than one striker to get through a season. I think that's pretty obvious for a team that Arsenal were going to want to hopefully play 60, 65 games this year. So you need more than one. But this is potentially bad news for Havertz, because in signing a striker, Arsenal, for a lot of money as well, Arsenal are saying, we love what you bring to the table, Kai, but you haven't scored enough goals. That's the simple fact.
They definitely needed a striker. I'm sure Arsenal fans are very, very excited. And if you read some of the other names that are being linked, they can be very exciting. Dobbs, let's bring you in here. Eberechi Eze. There's been a lot of talk about Tottenham and other clubs this window, but all of a sudden it's emerged that Arsenal may be his destination. How are we seeing this one? Is it progressing quickly, or is there a lot of work to do? What's the latest?
When you say progressing quickly, these kind of deals can go. One agent I spoke to last week, he described it as these kind of deals can go from 5% to 95% in no time at all, because the 5% to 95% can almost be sorted with the agreement with the player. Once personal terms aren't expected to be an issue, you can start negotiating with the club. Is it close? Not necessarily close. Ideally, Arsenal do want to bring him in. He has emerged as a top target for Arsenal now in this transfer window. There's been a few reports that, there have been various negotiations via intermediaries over Eberechi Eze. One thing that should be said here, though, is it can happen quickly or it can be negotiated, because we think that Eberechi Eze has got a release clause in his contract. Now, that release clause is around £60 million plus a further £8 million in performance-related add-ons. So you're looking at a fee in total of around £68 million. He's under contract. The Crystal Palace will want to get the full release clause if he is to go. Whereas there is a situation where Arsenal can do one of two things if they really go for this signing is, yes, just go ahead, meet the release clause, get that deal done. Whatever the parameters of that release clause are and those conditions are, just meet those conditions. For example, if it is a case like it was with Mateus Cunha, 3 installments. So you pay one now, one next summer, and the summer after that. Or will Arsenal try and negotiate on that release clause with Crystal Palace? And I've mentioned this before, and some people have said, why would you want to pay more? Yes, you might offer Crystal Palace more money for Eberechi Eze over and above the release clause, but in return for favourable payment terms. Maybe Arsenal are trying to discuss that side of it. We're told that personal terms aren't expected to be a problem here. We're hearing some noises that Eberechi Eze would be open to that move, but he's definitely emerging now as a big, big target for Arsenal in this window.
Arsenal going to be strong, Sam. Eze, if they get him as well, and behind Gyökeres. I said bad news for Havertz on the Gyökeres question. It's like, this not getting any better, is it?
No, and it's also potentially bad news for someone like Gabriel Martinelli, because I would have to guess that Arsenal are looking at Eze here as a left winger, first and foremost. We spoke last week about he has a nice bit of versatility. He can play as a number 10. He can play as a number 8 in a flatter midfield 3. So that could work. But surely if you're spending 60 to 70 million pounds on a player, you've got a pretty obvious role for him in mind, a first team role, a set role. Pop him in your system here. This is where he's going to do his business. If he has to play elsewhere, fine, but you need a proper plan for anyone that costs this much money. You don't just buy them and go, well, we'll see what happens. So this puts pressure on Martinelli in the same way that a new striker would put pressure on Havertz, which is exactly what Arsenal need. They're a very well-built team, but they don't really have a lot of risk-taking in their attacking setup. They don't have a player outside of Saka who's necessarily going to break the lines or take control of a game. And it's what I've been asking for, right, all summer. Give Saka a bit of help here. And I think Eze would do that. If he was 3 years younger, I say this a lot too, they'd probably already have signed him. But they're probably just weighing things up a little bit because Eze, it's kind of snuck up on me, and it probably will to others, already 27 years of age. To me, he feels eternally 25. But these things matter in these negotiations when you're considering dropping this much money on a player.
You know what? Madueke as well as another one, Noni at Chelsea. I'm just going to throw this straight in off the back. Did they go for both, or is it one or the other, Darmish? What are you hearing?
It's not just Noni Madueke that they're interested in. Rodrigo is one that has been floating about throughout this transfer window. You just wonder whether he's going to be the odd man out in that Real Madrid team under Xabi Alonso. The information I'm getting is it possibly could be Arsenal looking for 2 of those 3 to really strengthen that forward line, to really have competition. And as Sam alluded to there, to give the players like, in particular, Bukayo Saka, that rest that he probably needed before he got that hamstring injury last season. So it's looking like a really, really exciting window suddenly for Arsenal. I know Arsenal fans were panicking a bit at the start of this window, but it looks like they've got it all in hand, because what had happened really at the start of this window, they saw the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City, their biggest rivals for the Premier League title, you'd have to argue, really going for it early in this transfer window. And it's a case of, why aren't Arsenal doing anything? I think they just took a step back. At the time, there was still like 2.5 months left of this transfer window. The season had just finished. Let everyone just take a step back, just relax. So if you look at what they've done so far, Kepa in, Zubimendi in, Norgard on his way. That one looks as though it is as good as done. GYOKERES, that one is advancing. Christian Mosquera from Valencia, a central defender. Gap in valuation at the moment. But again, the direction of travel would suggest that Arsenal want to get that one over the line. And then you've got maybe 1 or 2 of 3